from his perspective, energy, frequency, and vibration is essentially what separates everything that is in the world. And then, so why was he into this? I'm going to try to attempt to kind of like break this down. So it's kind of it's better to work as like an example of like to use a ridiculous example is like, why can't we hear plants? We know they're communicating. We know from the mycelial network that they're sending something that distributes the nutrients from maybe this one who doesn't need as much nutrients over to this plant that might need a little bit more nutrients because it's small and a little, well, it's supposed to be smaller, but um, how do the leaves are smaller and darker, making it seem further rather than just smaller. The mycelial network is communicating between these two things. And it's like, how is it communicating? Well, it's probably going to be electrical energy for the most part, or some kind of energy, which is going to be technically, if it's energy in the form of like an electrical signal, it's going to be some kind of frequency and vibration that's might look like, might look pretty crazy, up, down, and all around, kind of like those heartbeat monitors, but three-dimensional and a little bit more um, uh, interesting looking. And so it's like, okay, so the difference between that is we aren't tuned into their electromagnetic energy to interpret their communication style, which in this case is the electrical energy happenings. So because we're not tuned in, we can't hear them. So that's just kind of like what separates all of this. And then so if you think about it, it actually does kind of make a little bit of sense where it's like we, and to kind of like broaden the view a little bit, it's like this. It's like this is the visible light spectrum right here. And I did the calculation. It's about like nanometer range from like this one to this one, which is just like right here. So that's 380 nanometers. And then this is 750 nanometers. And that equates to about a 370 nanometer range. That's all we essentially see when there's like way more over this way and there's way more over this way. And even more so because this is kind of, it gets to the size of like football fields, to like little small animals. So we even see just about, that's like 0.37 micrometers. So not even like an entire micrometer, which I believe I have a particle size. So yeah, so like this is the visual range right here. It's yeah, okay. So the coronavirus to like a wildfire smoke. So like a smoke particle is larger than the spectrum of visible light that we can see through, that we could see. And at his time, they were utilizing different things like radio waves for other purposes and stuff. And then so it's like the chances, if we're only experiencing this part, we don't really see this, but we can experience it in different ways. And then when we go over here, we almost can't even experience any of those. And the kind of the same a little bit goes to this side as well. We can see it, and we could definitely experience it. Usually negative, but there you go. And then so that's just, so his perspective is like there are more things outside of what we can see than there are things we can see. So that suggests we see less than that what is actually already here. That we only experience a small fraction of what's actually there, what we can actually use, explore, and experience. And what separates what we can feel and experience is going to be the tuning of energy, frequency, and vibration that we are currently in. We're essentially standing on like a 2x2 block, and there's like an entire earth worth of surface area to explore. And we can only see and essentially experience physically this box right here, which is kind of like a representation of the visible light spectrum added up. It's not entirely accurate because technically it's infinite, right? But just to kind of like get like some kind of foundation of like the size and the scale of this stuff, it's the cumulative sum of this side to this side is about 209,000. And then so, which is about like 210 micrometers. And then so it's just interesting where it's like the entirety of everything that you can see is almost essentially like the size of like one or two human hair lengths, which of course isn't correct. It's technically infinite, but it's a small infinite compared to like what's in here and like here. So just comparatively speaking, it's like standing on a 2 by 2 block. There's more. The point of it is that there's more things that you can't and aren't experiencing than there are things that you are. And then so from his perspective, it's like different phenomena that we don't really know about. They're probably existing in the aspects that we don't currently experience. And then so to write them off would be essentially just like writing off, well, I don't see gamma rays, so they're not real, or I don't experience radio waves, so they're not real. And then so if we go over to like the metaphysical side of things, where it's like, okay, so this is the box. It kind of adds like another, hey, I'm inside this box. But if you were to step outside of the box and explore a little bit more, to see everything that is potentially that we can interact with or utilize for certain purposes, it's like the entire freaking world basically opens up, where it's like, and again, this is just like examples where it's like what could be in this area, and it's probably most likely possible that all of these are definitely true, where it's like ghosts, UFOs, spiritual beings, angels, near-death experiences, siddhas, traveling dimensions, lucid dreaming, traveling parallel realities, various meditative states. So there's like blissful states, there's extremely ecstatic states, there's different things that yogis, they can make consecrated forms, so they say that they can make energetic forms that can interact with the world and all of this other stuff for certain purposes to help people go into certain meditative states. Extraterrestrials, there's extratemporal beings, right? There's people who say that they can time, well, not people who say they can time travel, but there's stories of time travel. There's shamanic journeys, there's synchronicities, there's coincidences, right? There's the DMT experience in like Bledsoe's Jesse Michels podcast. That was really interesting when he was talking about the orbs of light, that he says that are just around him all the time, and that there's all these NASA people and scientists who are following him to just get it on camera and stuff. And he has a bunch of these on camera, because I thought, oh, he's just talking about it. But no, he's taking a picture of like a lot of the stuff and has like a huge documented case. If you wanted to watch that video, Jesse Michels video, with Bledsoe. I'll put that in the link. I have 2 videos that are going to be in the link. There's remote viewing that the CIA did. There's, did I say astral travel? Yeah, astral travel. There's spiritual awakenings. These guys, the Tamas and Samaskars, I put them in different colors, but they're kind of related a little bit. There's energy surges. There's rainbow bodies, gamma wave, while people are channeling and their brain waves are doing all this stuff, deep bliss, all these different states, where it's like when you step outside the box of this right here, it's like there's more things outside of the box than there are things inside of the box. And I think that's kind of what what I'm trying to show you here is like all of this is like outside of the box, that we are essentially like the normal experiences. This is like the normal where everyone's used to being. And then if you step outside of that, there's all of this that I believe can be explained with everything that has to do with science. And a lot of these questions are already answered by people with like varying degrees. Whether or not you believe them is a different thing. But I think even the weirdest ones like these, and like I put the star ones and everything, the ones with the stars, there's scientists and people who are working on it currently with like the telepathy and the telepathy tapes. Oh yeah, I didn't do that, but yeah, people living some 700 years. But the one that people are doing science on is the telepathy, the gamma, the near-death experiences, the UFOs, and everything. Where it's like if you watch the telepathy tapes, it's pretty clear that there's something going on with that, to say the least, right? And so I believe that these are all the things when you step outside of the box is what the majority of the experience is. And then so from Nikola Tesla's perspective, it's like it's pretty arrogant to assume, okay, my narrow bandwidth, which is only this much, which is only this 2 by 2 square foot on the entirety of the earth, so I'm going to discount everything else. And it's like, no, it doesn't make any sense. And if you think about it, what separates all of these things, what separates all of when you think about it, what separates all of these things with the gamma, like literally the gamma wave frequency is frequency. It's a vibration of a different form of the energy vibrating in a different way, creating a new frequency called the gamma frequency that allows people to apparently channel things. But at the very least, it's making their brain go into a more, it's making them feel calmer, uh, which is definitely a very physical effect, right? And so that's kind of like what I'm talking, and that's kind of like what Tesla is kind of talking about, and what I'm talking about right here, where it's like, you know, this is basically just kind of covering everything, um, which is very interesting that he was able to figure this out. And it makes sense because it's like there's not really anything else. Like if you think about like how, communicating with pretty much anybody, it's, or if you want to interact something or have something to interact with differently, it's usually going to come in these forms, which looks like is the form that is utilized to separate everything. And you could even simplify this into just to say like maybe just frequency, because like different frequencies have different energy potentials and they're going to vibrate differently, because a vibration could be a vibrational pattern that makes something different, even though it's the same maybe frequency or energy, but the pattern is different or something, causing something different. But yeah, and then so that's what's really interesting, where it's like it's really genius, honestly, where he puts emphasis on solving like real world problems with solving problems that you can't see, that like they're like equal in his eye. So things that you like can't see, things that you can see, oh, things that you can see, and things that you can't see, like they're basically the same thing to him. And probably he puts more emphasis on the things that he can't see, as you can see that there's more things that you can't see and you can't experience than there are things that you can see, right? So that's just like really interesting, where it's like, oh, that's an interesting thought. And then so with all of this being said, if you want to add another layer of crazy, of just interestingness to it, it's like when extraterrestrials come to people, like what is one of the things that they say, right? One of the things that you hear over and over and over is, you are more powerful than you think. So with that being said, if all of these things are true, even if just a couple of them are true, it would essentially expand your scope of reality and what you're able to do in the physical world. Because as they say, you are more powerful than you think, which is like an interesting message for an ET that doesn't seem to have any like happenings or what have yous, like what any stake in the fight really. And like, why are they saying that? That's an interesting thing. But if you take this into account, it's like, oh, like you don't even know what you're capable of if you think these aren't possible. Like this is like the beginning. Like this is just, his toe is just sticking out a little bit. Like that is just the beginning of all of this. You have a whole world of possibilities to explore, and this is like the equivalent of just your little toe sticking out. And so if we come over here, number 3, oh yeah, if you want to experience this, I kind of put like the beginner evidence is this video right here. So the 432 hertz full body recovery healed, whatever. Because technically, the only way for this to heal, like, okay, so beginner evidence that these phenomena are outside the body and not just in the mind. The relaxed mind YouTube helps you sleep, because technically, if you'd essentially have to believe this to work in order for it to work. So this is like, how like there's placebo effect and something. So it's actually even better if you don't believe this works. And if it does work, then these things are definitely possible, because it's happening outside of your mind and body, where it's like, it's just basically using energy, frequency, and vibration, the thing that kind of separates everything, to basically make you feel more relaxed. And I've tried this in this specific video. I haven't really had any success with other videos, but whatever it is with this video, it seems to be working. Like I just wake up like refreshed. Like it feels like even if you get 4 hours of sleep, or like 3 to like 6 hours of sleep, which is like awful for me, it feels like I got 8. Like I wake up like springing, like I'm like a freaking, like I wake up like a young buck. I feel like I'm missing something that isn't quite clicking well with the energy, frequency, and vibration being the differentiating factor between everything, or like why he believes that is the case. But at least for the trees, it makes a little bit more sense because I had an extra step that makes this step like way more clear. Because I like making things so clear that it's just like, okay, like you just kind of give up and it's like, okay, I understand. Um, and why would this be important is on the next page. Almost forgot. So one of the benefits is that it boosts science. So exploring these things that are seemingly outside of science, which I really don't think anything is outside of science. I think like with all these things, like science is like everything is just gonna be a little bit more scientific than we previously thought. Because even with a lot of these things, you can kind of explain them, uh, not necessarily with that because there's like multiple layers. Like yeah, technically, but it goes a little bit into more depth of like if you wanted to utilize any one of these things, how would you go about doing that? And there's a lot of experiments that can be done that I just haven't seen answers for, essentially. Um, and these things are like falsifiable, right? So, oh yeah, so one of the boosts is that it boosts science. So, like, let's take the theory of relativity, for example. It's literally built into the spiritual experience. And this is like something that a lot of scientists, I don't think they actually have seen or experienced yet. So, I'm just going to kind of give you like a little experiential dose of like an anecdotal evidence. Uh, so essentially you'll be able to predict and understand more things inside undiscovered aspects of science. And then so what do I mean by this with the theory of relativity in my example that I was talking about, as you become and dive deeper into more non-physical experiences, that which was at first non-physical becomes more physical. Basically, it's like things that you would attribute as like, oh, that's non-physical, like ghosts aren't physical. As you go into and like reach into more non-physical experiences, they're either like different meditative states and whatnot, that you're going to see kind of an experience in almost a lot of these things more readily than someone who isn't, essentially. And I think that's probably why a lot of people they think that UFOs are seen by more creative people. It's because that meditative mind is kind of like already open and they're already experiencing. Probably, if you ask these creative people, they've experienced some of these things just doing their everyday life. They've experienced synchronicities. They've experienced coincidences that just line up, right? They experience, maybe they've even seen different beings and feel like they have certain powers or something, or at the very least, um, maybe experience some sort of telepathy. They understand something, or I'm trying to think of like a more easy, oh, they had different lucid dreams and astral travels and whatnot. Um, because they're already kind of like in that non-physical experience. So like seeing all of these things is just going to be like kind of like an everyday experience for them. Whereas someone who isn't is not really going to see any of that stuff that much. And then so that's why it's like as you become more and dive deeper into more non-physical experiences, so increasing different meditative states and deepening your bliss states, the things that are not physical become more physical. And so an extreme example would be a yogi talking to a siddha. There's stories of like a yogic, and I mean like the yogic powers, like the actual like powers themselves, where there's like yogis who have gone to a level in their meditation where they're so meditative that like they're so like loosely connected to their body that it's like, and they describe it as kind of like at first it's like a halo around their head, and then it's like a vortex, or like some people have described like an infinity above their head that they feel, but that they get so deep into these meditative states where it's like they're literally talking to the yogic powers themselves. So like they would just like I like what do you even make is that like where it's like it seems like yeah that they would talk to the yogic power themselves, and like have conversations with them, like in that, like I thought that was really interesting. And then so a smaller example would just be bliss versus ecstatic. You can essentially, as you go deeper into these states, you could just change. It's like just easier to change if you want to go from bliss to ecstatic. to different meditative states. You could just do it much more easier, like as easy as you would like walking to running, essentially. Whereas before, it would have probably taken like a while, like when you weren't really deep into the experiences, the non physical experiences as much, that going from ecstatic to blissful would probably, like, it was just like more difficult to do. Whereas when you're into it more, it's like relatively a lot easier when you're deeper into it versus when you're just kind of dipping your toe. It's harder to do that kind of thing. It's ecstatic, you essentially give yourself energy and whatnot, but also the major benefit for scientists is you'd understand things like theory of relativity pretty quickly, where it's like as you go deeper, you notice that, like, oh, relative to me, when I go deeper into these experiences, the things relative to me are more physical, essentially. So when you go up the ladder, more physical, it seems more physical to you, and you can go up and down the ladder, essentially, of different meditative experiences. You're going to get different effects. And then so it's like other states exist within that, where it's like if we're talking about like traveling to parallel realities and whatnot, it could just as easily be maybe like a different frequency or a vibrational pattern of something that causes people to travel to these different realities. Or when some stories have even said where yogis are literally on their own world, that they just like opened up portals and just went into somewhere else. It's like I don't know, maybe like that probably has something to do with quantum mechanics, because I know it's like a superposition, like it has all these different possibilities of something like inside a sphere, right? It's possible that maybe from one perspective all the possibilities are existing, and it's kind of like imagine like the Big Bang, like it's like all going out like that, where it's like maybe that one superposition particle, like right here, well, or just like right here, is choosing everything. It's not choosing anything, it's choosing everything, and it's going and creating all these branching realities just from every single moment of possibility creation. And then I could explain that a little bit, but yeah, so that's not a good example, but I mean it gets as you go into these experiences, I probably should have put certain things that I am doing right now, but you can essentially make falsifiable experiments for things that are nearly outside of the experience of what normally happens, or kind of like on the cutting edge of science, a lot easier by understanding and experiencing these things. So, because you deepen your meditative states. But yeah. Or like expand your mind. Some people have described it as opening chakras. It's whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so that's thinking like Tesla. That's how we got. That's how we got these three. And to basically sum it up, there's more things to experience than there are things that your body was made to experience. Because light, visible light from other light, discriminates itself from your perceptions using energy, states, frequencies, and vibrations. It could stand to reason that there's other aspects of reality that use that same concept, parameter, what is it called? Same idea to discriminate possibilities from you from experiencing them using this right here. So it could stand to reason that probably this expands to essentially every aspect of reality. Just like how we could probably assume that light, invisible light, isn't the only thing that we're only experiencing a very small portion of. Whereas like if you include all of these, that would at least help fill up what is potentially on the world outside of the box. It's not just nothing. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, hopefully this helps.